I used to be pretty strict about creating a training plan and sticking to it, both for myself and my clients. However, I've changed my mind on this. If you stay tuned until the end, you'll see some example programming strategies that should help your results in the gym. What's going on? If you're new here, my name is Josh Pelland, and I'm a strength and hypertrophy researcher. I also coach powerlifters and other lifters interested in getting stronger and or more jacked. Today's video is about a shift in my perspective on how to manage a pretty foundational aspect of program design. Let me explain. So in the past, I was really bought into controlling everything I could so I could maximize what's called diagnostic clarity. Diagnostic clarity is simply the degree of confidence I have in evaluating what training variable or variables caused the training outcome or lack thereof. As a basic example, if a lifter was doing 10 sets per week on bench press and I wanted to bump it up to 15 sets, I'd previously only bump that volume up if we could logistically get it in every single week and really make sure we get those 15 sets in at the programmed RPE every week to ensure that I have maximum diagnostic clarity. In other words, I really valued and prioritized control over training variables so that I could try to tell what was going on and assign causality to strength or hypertrophy results. These days, this diagnostic clarity is less of the priority, at least for some lifters. And I think three things have contributed to this. The first is having less confidence in evaluating what quote unquote works. Honestly, I think coaches can convince themselves that they see a pattern for a given lifter that isn't actually there. Put more simply, it's really hard to truly know that a given client responds to X protocol and not Y protocol. This is a bit of a hot take, and if you're aware of our position on this, say 3 or 4 years ago, you know this is a pretty big shift for us. It's largely informed by our research experience since then and better understanding variability and error. Put another way, given the error in measuring things like muscle size and strength, even in the lab, with better equipment than we have in a coaching setting, it definitely humbles me in terms of the confidence we can have with a sample size of 1 with a given lifter that we're working with. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't still try to find what works for someone. Instead, we should be humble in our pursuit of finding what works and make sure it's not taking away from prioritizing training inputs, which ultimately drives the training response. This is the most important factor driving the shift in my perspective. If we return to the basic example of increasing bench volume from 10 sets to 15 sets, sure, we can try our best to differentiate the training response between the two volumes in a perfect world, and if we get the benefit of additional diagnostic clarity, great. However, if someone has a variable schedule, I'm going to prioritize getting the additional training inputs in, even if that means more variable training and thus lower diagnostic clarity. Here's an example. My client Gibson is a family man with a busy career, and some weeks he can train for, say, 8 hours, whereas other weeks it's only, say, 2 to 3 hours. His schedule is pretty unpredictable, so we've taken an approach in which there are 2 required days with optional accessory work, and then 2 completely optional days. So some weeks, Gibson may do over twice the total volume compared to other weeks. This is something that definitely decreases diagnostic clarity, but the benefit here is that we're prioritizing training inputs on weeks where he has the capacity to do so. Then it's my job as a coach to combine research-informed principles and experience to best predict what he needs for future training phases. Now, you may be worried that some weeks will result in a decrease in volume from previous weeks. And you could make an argument that if you're used to a given volume, dropping the volume will result in ineffective training. However, that just doesn't seem to be the case. Or at least if it is, it's not a massive deal. In fact, we have multiple studies in which the average volume goes down in the cohort, but meaningful hypertrophy still occurs. Put another way, just because you are doing 15 sets for a lift in 1 week, and then you have to do 5 sets the next week because of time constraints, That doesn't mean there's no chance of benefiting from the 5 sets you are able to get in. The final reason is a complete overhaul in our thinking on individualization. This is a topic that requires a lot of discussion, as well as some coming data from Zach's main PhD project. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as well as our podcast, which you can find in the description. We'll be sure to break this down in the future when the time is right. But for now, suffice it to say that individualization absolutely matters. But training principles are still training principles. And I would recommend you check out the video, and I'll put it somewhere on the screen here, where we discuss the main principles for strength and hypertrophy. All right, I'll leave you with another example session for actually what I'm currently doing for my training. Sometimes I have 15 minutes to squeeze this session in. Other times I have over an hour, and I want to be able to take advantage of that. So I do few exercises, and if I can only get in 1 to 2 sets per exercise, I can get in and out of the gym really quickly. And I may even use strategies like drop sets or myo reps in situations like that. But if I have more time, I could just do a lot more sets, and sometimes I'll even add in an exercise or 2 for the muscles that I'm training for that day. All right, to summarize, don't prioritize diagnostic clarity over optimizing training inputs. Diagnostic clarity is great, and a lifter looking to turn over every single stone to maximize progress should probably be very consistent with their workloads, so long as they can regularly prioritize training within their schedule. But for a lot of folks, that just isn't reasonable. But that doesn't mean you can't take a principle-based approach to a more variable workload sort of training program. Second, lean into the skill of training decisions. These days, I put more and more emphasis on this in my coaching practice. I view my job as collaborating with the athlete to equip them with the tools to take a plan and then make smart adjustments and calls in the gym. This might mean choosing the right load based on fatigue levels and also based on where they are in the block. This might mean adjusting set numbers based on what they did the last couple weeks and how well they tolerate the exercise in general, and much more. All right, that's the video. Please make sure you're subscribed. Check out our other stuff in the description, and we'll see you in the next video.